he is on the
Demar, welcome to Tim and Sid. How you doing?
I'm good. How y'all doing?
I'm good. First things first, we just ran the clip of Kevin Garnett giving this market and the fan base a lot of love. When you hear a guy who's seen that much basketball say that about this market, that must make you feel good.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Because we got one of the best fans in the league, man. For some veterans like that to speak up upon it, it definitely prove it.
Demar Derozan here on Tim and Sid. When you woke up this morning, Demar, what's going through your head?
I don't know. A lot of mixed feelings. Still a little frustrated. We lost the game, tough game, but overall, got to be pleased with the season we had, overcoming all the doubters, critics, whatever you call them. And, we took it upon ourselves and proved a lot of people wrong.
What was the lesson learned?
Lesson learned is, you take a lot from it. We learned a lot about how to win games, how to close games, how to come together when adversity hits. It's more positive to take out of this season and out of this playoff series than anything.
Everyone tells you how the playoffs are going to be different. Were you prepared for how different the playoffs were?
I mean, yeah, it was an adjustment every single game, especially for my first go-around and a couple other guys on the team first go-around. Definitely something that, people try to, tell you about, but you really don't know what it's going to be like till you actually experience it. So every single game was an adjustment, and it was one to remember and one to grow from.
Demar Derozan here on Tim and Sid. Demar, final play, Kyle Lowry has his shot attempt blocked. You run over to him and start talking. Now, I thought initially you ran over there and said, "How dare you take that shot? That shot was meant for me." That's a joke. I didn't actually think you said that. How important was? Thank you for the little giggle. How important was it though for you to go over there right away and say what you said to him? How vital was that for you?
It was definitely important because I didn't want him to hang his head on that one shot. It didn't come down just to that one shot. It was a whole series of things. We just got put in a situation to come down to a shot to put us up, but we just don't know hang his head on that. We came too far just to hang our head on one shot, and I love when him taking that shot or having the ball in his hands in that situation 10 times out of 10. So, hey, you live and you learn.
Did you tell him, "Don't worry, we'll get another shot at it next year"?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
All right, so on a scale of 1 to he's staying, what would you say the chances are of him re-signing with his team?
You said a scale to what?
1 to he is staying here in this market.
Oh, is he staying? I mean, you got to ask him. But, I'm not too much worried about it. He's going to make the right decision. It's a big decision for him. He understands he's a vital part to this organization in this city. So, I really can't rate it. I got trust in my man to make the right decision.
Demar Derozan here on Tim and Sid. Demar, I think towards the end of the series, and I don't think this has been really talked about enough, their payroll is like, what, $193 million, and they're going 9 deep, while you guys have a 7-man rotation at the end. And from a depth perspective, there are some issues. What does this Raptors team have to do in the offseason? What do they need to bring in to take that next step, the next step you were so close to yesterday?
I think we leave that up to the front office to make them decisions to really evaluate what we need. It can be various things, but I don't think it's much. It's not really too much. I think we needed to gain more experience. Personally, that's what I think. Then, all you got to do is add a couple more things, a couple years of veterans, 1 or 2 veterans on the team, whatever it may be. That's on the front office to make that decision. But, it's not much that we really need.
Do you think in hindsight, facing former champions like Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett offered more to learn than, say, a first-round win versus the Wizards or Bulls?
Yeah, I think so, especially against a group of guys like that, because You really can't get too much better than that when it comes to, the experience they have and the championship players that they have over there. They know what it takes to win. So you can't have no mental mistakes, no letdowns. You got to play physical. You got, all that comes into play, and you definitely learn a lot.
Was there anything specific you saw from KG or Paul Pierce where you're just like, damn, that's a world champion. That's why I know that they have experience?
They was composed for the whole series. You never see them panic, never see them feel rushed. They was calm. They didn't let the crowd get to them. You could tell they were just leveled for the whole playoff.
Demar Derozan here on Tim and Sid. Demar, you don't need me to remind you what the talk was before the season, and Tank Nation was out there. There are a lot of people who thought this organization would be better served by not winning as many games as it did, and playoff experience is slightly overrated. I mean, as we sit here today, what would you say to those people considering what you've just been through and what you're going to take with you going forward?
They crazy, first of all. You know what I mean? Me personally, that's what I think. You can't determine a man's will or work ethic, based off, somebody's opinion. They crazy, first of all. So whoever thought that and brought that up. But we showed people that they could eat their words at the end of the day, and we went out there and played great basketball. It wasn't no luck behind it. It wasn't we was playing against bad teams. We proved it.
The assumption is now that you guys are better for the journey. First off, do you agree with that? And last year, your brethren, the Leafs, were in the same spot. A tough Game 7 loss everyone thought was going to spark more in the future. How do you guys make sure that this is the start of something?
I mean, everybody realized that. Everybody know. Nobody's satisfied. Nobody's happy with the loss yesterday or making the playoffs, going 7 games. It was cool. We was cool with winning 48 games, but we know we can win more than that. It's cool going to Game 7, but we know we can go farther in the playoffs. We all understand that, and it's just a taste of what we really wanted. We definitely want more. It's a mindset. We're not comfortable at all.
Demar Derozan here on Tim and Sid. Demar, in a lot of organizations, I'm not saying it's a great thing or a bad thing necessarily either way, but a lot of organizations will take their star player, you're an all-star, in an off-season, and they'll sit you down and say, what do you think? And they want your input. Do you anticipate having those types of conversations with Masai?
I mean, if he come to me, ask me, yeah, I'll give my honest opinion, but I really don't look forward to it. My job is to be best prepared for next season as possible. If he come to me with that, then I'll be willing to give him my honest opinion. But other than that, I'm focused on getting better.
Good answer. Demar Derozan joining us here on Tim and Sid. Hey, listen, I got to ask, on that final play, I noticed that Gravis Vasquez lined up by the Nets bench on the scorer's table side. Did you guys know that the inbound was supposed to be on the far side of the court heading out for that final play?
Nah, I think we just got mixed up. We got mixed up. We thought we could use that side, but it really didn't matter with the play we was running. We just wasn't sure.
The other part of this that a lot of Raptor fans are begging us to ask is the officials. Did you learn a lot about what it takes to get through interesting calls, and did you have a problem or a beef with the officials?
I mean, you play in the league long enough, you're going to have to understand you can't worry about the officials. Everybody else worry about them, fans and whatnot. But when you out there playing, you really can't worry about them, honestly. You got to go out there, play hard, be aggressive, and, let them call a game. You really can't look towards them for any type of calls. That's the mindset you got to have, especially playing in a hostile environment like we was last night.
Demar Derozan here on Tim and Sid. After the game, Coach Casey Demar said you were suffering from the flu. I got to ask you now that it's over, were you healthy, flu aside, or were you injured?
Nah, I was pretty bad, but I didn't really want to say much before the game, and bring that up or let anybody know. But Yeah, it was pretty tough. Trying to just stay hydrated as much as possible during the game.
Anything else physically that was going on tomorrow, or was it just a flu situation yesterday?
Yeah, just a flu situation.
Okay. Are the future bright for the Toronto Raptors? Without
doubt, no question about it.
You know what? Let's end it there.
Yeah.
I got nothing else tomorrow. Listen, tomorrow, I know this is. I know it was a hell of a year, but I know there's a lot of disappointment there as well because you guys are competitors, and I appreciate you coming on today. And don't be a stranger. You have an open invite to come on to the show anytime during the off season, and we wish you all the best. Take care, man.
Thank you.